Welcome to this live advanced training webinar. I'm Anthony Pietrobono, founder of Advanced Physiques, an online coaching business specializing in accelerating our clients' fat loss or muscle gain. Throughout this webinar, if you have any questions, you can feel free to send me an email at advphysique@gmail.com. So what we're going to be learning today is how to gain muscle faster without spending hours in the gym. We're going to go over 3 secrets, and they're not really secrets, but they're things that people don't actually really talk about. We're going to talk about 3 things that people usually do not talk about when it comes to how to gain muscle faster. My ultimate goal is to be the guy who transformed millions of people's lives by helping them improve their training and nutrition. Imagine what your life will be like after you know how to effectively stimulate your muscle fibers to gain muscle much faster. Imagine the confidence you'll gain having 10 pounds of lean muscle tissue added to your frame while staying lean. Can you see how much time and effort you'll save by learning the advanced training techniques I'm about to share with you? Today I'm going to show you how to gain muscle faster without spending hours in the gym. So first up, out of the 3 secrets is going to be the 5 main drivers of hypertrophy. These are absolutely vital to your muscle growth. Starting it off, we've got progressive overload. Progressive overload, basically what it is in order for a muscle to grow, strength to be gained, performance to increase, or for any improvement to occur, the human body must be forced to adapt to a tension that is above and beyond what it has previously experienced. This is basically what it's saying is if you do 3 sets of 10 on bench press doing 135 pounds, and you're doing that consistently, your body doesn't have any reason to adapt because that's all you're giving it. You're giving it the same stimulus. Progressive overload is where you're increasing that stimulus to give your body a new stimulus to adapt to. So next week, instead of doing that 3 sets of 10 of 135, you're going to try 140 pounds and see if you can complete 3 sets of 10. If you did, then that means your total overall volume increased. So you're taxing your muscle in new ways because you had more total volume worked on progressive overload. So on that bench press, volume pretty much equates to the number of sets, reps, and the weight you're doing. So you can multiply the number of sets by the number of reps by the number of weight you're executing. Obviously, 3 sets of 10 at 140 pounds is a greater total volume than 3 sets of 10 at 135 pounds. You see what I'm saying here? There's also multiple ways to incorporate progressive overload. It doesn't have to be more weight. It can be 1 rep more, or it can be 1 set more. You see the equation? It's sets times reps times weight. So you can do 4 sets of 10 with 135 pounds instead of 3 sets of 10. Adding another set and resting longer can also be a form of progressive overload. So there's tons of ways to implement progressive overload. Moving on. The second main driver of hypertrophy is mechanical stress. The goal here is to move heavier loads. You're going to want to be working in the 3 to 8 rep range, and your tempo is going to be an explosive concentric with a relatively controlled eccentric. You're going to want to rest 2 to 5 minutes because, again, our goal is to move heavier loads. You're going to be needing to rest adequately in between sets to ensure you're actually able to move that heavy load for the given amount of reps again. This is basically how you can create micro tears in the muscles from loading the muscle with a greater amount of weight. That is one way to drastically increase muscle protein synthesis and actually start gaining muscle quicker. You're going to want to complete anywhere between 3 to 8 sets, depending again on your training program and how everything's split up. So again, mechanical stress, the goal is to move heavier loads. You're going to be working in the 3 to 8 rep range, and you're going to be creating micro tears in the muscle. That's the second main driver of hypertrophy. The third main driver of hypertrophy is metabolic stress. The goal here is lactic acid accumulation. Pretty much, lactic acid accumulation actually stimulates muscle protein synthesis, and Dr. Jacob Wilson actually showed this in his lab studies by literally just taking a muscle cell, isolating it in a petri dish, and actually dropping lactic acid into the petri dish with that muscle cell. What they noticed was that muscle protein synthesis was actually heightened just from applying lactic acid to a muscle cell. So that is a clear indicator that if you can accumulate more lactic acid throughout a workout, you can again enhance muscle protein synthesis and enhance your hypertrophy. You're going to want to complete 12 to 20 reps or more, sometimes to muscular failure, because again, when you're performing a lot of repetitions to failure, that's how you can ensure you're producing a lot of lactic acid. The tempo, it can be any tempo. You can go into more detail at a later date. And the rest period is going to be 60 seconds or less. Again, this rest time needs to be low because lactic acid gets buffered out with oxygen. So the more you breathe, the faster our body can buffer out lactic acid. So the longer rest period, the more we're breathing, and the faster this lactic acid gets buffered out. So we want to have lower rest periods. The fourth main driver of hypertrophy is going to be muscle damage. The goal here is to execute slow eccentrics with heavy loads. We're going to want to complete 2 to 5 sets, again, depending on our training protocol, executing mainly around 8 to 12 reps at a 4010 tempo. So we're going to have a 4-second negative. That's where we're really controlling the eccentric and lowering the weight for 4 seconds. We're going to want to rest 1 to 3 minutes. And again, this is how we're going to be recruiting as many muscle fibers as we can and actually damaging the muscle. We're creating more of those micro tears with heavy loads, and that's another way you can induce muscular hypertrophy from having these heavier loads and controlling it through that eccentric. The fifth main driver of hypertrophy is going to be cell swelling. So the goal is high volume, training to failure and chasing the pump. Ultimately, straight up chasing the pump. You're going to want to execute 3 to 6 sets, 8 to 20 repetitions at a 1010 tempo, resting 1 to 2 minutes. So we're trying to force as much blood as we can into those muscle cells. More lab work being done and more research being done actually showed that when we force so much blood into a muscle cell, that muscle cell is either forced to split apart and reproduce or die. And 9 times out of 10, that muscle cell splits apart and duplicates. So what does that mean? You're going to be creating more muscle cells, given that's exactly how you're going to grow your muscle. So see, these are 5 main drivers of hypertrophy. Those are 5 different ways, completely different mechanisms by the human body to grow muscle. All right, like it's absolutely insane. With this cell swelling tactic, you can use a variety of set intensifiers that we're going to go into to the next detail here. So, like I said, the fifth one was cell swelling, and I said we can be using set intensifiers, and that's exactly what the second secret is. Implementing more set intensifiers. And honestly, this one is magical. If you know a ton of different ways to intensify a set, then you're going to be drastically enhancing your muscle gain. So this is very, very important as well. Like I said, that's why there's 3 secrets. These are things people do not talk about. All right, so let's go right into the second